following episode of Real Reactions with Greg and Kyle is dedicated to the loving memory of DeLoss Brown.
From the beginning of motion picture history, Hollywood has tried to show you what the afterlife is really like.
Good afternoon and welcome to Judgment City.
You have any idea what's going on?
No?
Well, in a nutshell, you're here to defend your life, and I'm going to help you.
Defend my life?
Finally, wow, the first true story of what happens after you die.
Where am I? Is this heaven?
No, it isn't heaven.
Is it hell?
Actually, there is no hell. Although I hear Los Angeles is getting pretty close.
That's life.
Albert Brooks,
You make me think of my little Pluto.
Meryl Streep,
I think I might have been a heavyset man at one time.
Rick Torn, Lee Grant, Buck Henry, in a new film by Albert Brooks.
So I'm on trial for being afraid.
Well, first of all, I don't like to call it a trial. Second of all, yes.
If you see one movie before you die,
I love you. I love you.
This is damn exciting. Don't worry about it.
Good evening, everybody, and this is Greg. And yet again, we're doing something a little different tonight. It is our regularly scheduled show, which followed our special, our 1 year special that we did last week. And now I am going to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, and incomparable Kyle Bain so that we could talk about that for just a little bit. Kyle, what's up?
Hello. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say how excited I was. You teased me for the last week with special guests, a guest that I have not met before, but I'm excited for her input, and two guests that did not disappoint. I'll let you obviously introduce them, but I'm excited to talk some film.
Yes. And last week was incredible because we reviewed a film near and dear to your heart. And in that situation, we got pretty much the whole cast reposting our podcast. So that was pretty cool. But this week, as I've said over and over again, this happens to be my favorite film of all time. And in the spirit of that, and it's also our season finale, our first season finale, and as we experimented with having two guests on the show, we're actually going to have three guests. We have a first-timer, and we have two very important special guests that represent a lot by being in our year-end season finale, and we will introduce them now. So first, the first-timer on the show, we'll let her tell you a little bit about herself. We welcome Johanna Dinsdale. Welcome, Johanna.
Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Very exciting.
Thank you for being here. I felt that this film we're going to talk about was pretty appropriate for, some people might disagree with me, but I feel it was pretty appropriate for a professional therapist. I really did.
Yes, absolutely. When I first heard the title of this movie, I thought it was going to be like a fight-in movie. But I was pleasantly surprised, and absolutely, this is right up my alley. It's very psychological and interesting and existential. So I am very looking forward to diving into it with my therapist opinions.
I'm very much looking forward to everybody. Obviously, I am nervous tonight. Not that I will take it personally because it's not my film, though it's my favorite film. I have now mentioned that about 700 times on a variety of podcasts. Okay, so now our special guests, we usually have up to two guests. We're having three guests tonight, but that's because I don't need to talk about the movie. I've made it obvious how I feel about the film. I refer everybody to Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where you can find my episode on defending your life. I will rebuttal, but it's perfectly obvious what I think about it. So there's really no need. So I decided for the year-end season finale to have two extremely important guests. First up, he was the guest in our very first show, and now we're going to end the year with him. It is none other than Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcasts, and someone I go way too far back with. Keith Bliss is returning tonight. What is up, Keith?
Hey Greg, how's it going? I appreciate you having me back. It's weird to be the bookend guest where I started this season, I'm ending the season, so I can't wait. This is going to be a new one for me.
Well, I think it's good to be a bookend. So we differ on opinions of that, but yes, you did start the season, and you did so brilliantly, Keith. So why not again?
I don't know if I can live up to this hype,
Next,
Greg.
next up. So here's the deal with our next guest. She has been on before, and she's on again. But this is the deal. She's a patron over at Star Trek: The Undiscovered podcast. And so one of the perks you get as Star Trek: The Undiscovered podcast is that you get you get the episode a few days before it drops. But with this particular guest, we said, what if we do that with Real Reactions too? And you watch the film as well. You get the episode early, and you watch the film, and you give me your opinion on the film, and you give us, like, it's almost like she green lights each show by going, it sounds good to me, release it. And that is none other than another returning guest, Holly McMiller. Welcome back, Holly.
Hello, thank you for having me come back, and I'm looking forward to talking this film tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. The last film you were on with us was Angus, and while I don't call that, it's not a favorite movie, but it's another movie that I find so poignant and profound. So this is also very appropriate. So, folks, you know what we do on Real Reactions. We take films that somehow have fallen under the radar, whether that is something that is fair or not to these films. Remember, there are spoilers, so these are actually a companion piece to the film, so it is highly recommended that you watch the film first if you haven't already. At recording time, this particular film is not streaming for free, but it has, and it would again. But you can rent it anywhere or go to your local library. And did I mention this is my favorite film of all time? Yeah, I think I did. And that film is Defending Your Life. Defending Your Life was released on March 22nd, 1991. And by the way, that sort of date is in and of itself a release date that is just not great for film. So that kind of gives sort of one of the reasons this could have flown under the radar. It is written and directed by the film star Albert Brooks. It was produced by Robert Grand, Michael Grillo, and Herb Nanis. The cinematography was by Alan DeVow. It was edited by David Finfer. The score was by Michael Gore. Honorable mention, the production designer here was Ida Random, and I must say, I love the production design of this film because I really does feel like some of the locations were a set, some of the locations were actual Los Angeles locations, but I feel like they really figured out to make it look like this was literally a way station Afterlife theme park type thing. And I really admire the production design on this film. The running time is 1 hour, 52 minutes, and the film cost $20 million to make and grossed just a little over $16 million at the box office. So there you go. It didn't make its money back. And I think that the lack of popularity of this film is a little criminal, but of course it therefore qualifies for Real Reactions. I should mention, though, over the years, it has been reevaluated. And while still, for the most part, kind of under the radar, it has gained a very loyal cult following, just like Albert Brooks himself has a significant cult following, and that's where this falls. He whimsically is the first to admit that his most famous role is Marlin from Finding Nemo. So we're going to start with general impressions, and we're going to start with our first timer, Johanna Dinsdale. What are your general impressions of Defending Your Life?
Okay, so first of all, I really resonated with this movie for sure. I can see why it's your favorite, Greg, because it's really analyzing what we do to ourselves every single day, right? Which is judging our life choices. And, you know, it takes place in this kind of afterlife situation, Judgment City. And I kind of visualize it almost as your brain, right? Like, I know it's kind of more existential, like it's supposed to be a place, but I can almost visualize, you know, this happening in your brain, flashing through this kind of like internal courtroom, right? And the film is, you know, trying to teach you kind of the ultimate question of self-accountability, right? Did you successfully get to your fullest potential, whatever that looks like to you, right? A lot of interesting parts and components that I could definitely dive into right away, but I want to hear what our other guests thought about it too, their general impressions.
That is great stuff. We're going to move on to Holly McMiller. What were your general impressions of Defending Your Life?
I really enjoyed it because I have vague memories of catching bits and pieces here and there growing up, and I having a chance to sit down and watch it in entirety. Wow. And yeah, just like Johanna was saying, the replay that you get of your day, it's like, oh, maybe I could have done this better. Or even to kind of like judging, okay, I did it this way, but was I really meaning to go for the success, or was I being honest, or just trying to be a good person instead of trying to go for the glory? And I love that aspect. And it makes you sit and think. It's just like, okay, am I a good person because I didn't go do that? I stayed humble, or am I a bad person because I didn't brag on myself like society wants us to at times? So, I mean, it's a gem of a movie.
Excellent stuff. Now, Keith, you had said that you saw it eons ago.
Yes.
So, did you even remember your impressions of it back then? If not, that's okay. But if you do, give me your impressions of back then. But now you've seen some stuff, a lot of stuff. So
Yes.
your impressions then, only if you remember it, and your general impressions of the film now.
It's funny you mentioned that and asked me about it because I was going to bring that up. When I had seen this back in the 90s, we were young kids and we had no idea what the world was going to bring us. So watching this as a child, you're very naive to things. You're like, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand this. Like, why is this a thing? And now me as a older adult, I resonate with a lot of what's going on. I am one of those individuals, as Holly, as everybody else is going to say, that goes in and just like replays days that like, oh, I could have done this better, or should I have done X or Y? So now me as an adult, I can look at it with the old man eyes, as I jokingly say, and go, oh yeah, I see why they're pointing these out and why they're so hyper focused on these key points in this character's life, because as we all do, we all hyper focus. So I definitely enjoy it more now in my 40s than I did back in my teens, because different perspectives and all the other stuff I had seen in my life.
All right. Well, now we get to what I call the moment of truth, number one on the show. And I'm a little nervous because Kyle has had a poker face since we logged on here. Kyle, your general impressions, please, of Defending Your Life.
Well, you feel now like I did last week when I presented you with one of the good ones. So I'm glad that I made you stew in this for a little bit. But I I enjoyed this film very much. I was very impressed. Like Johanna said, I definitely understand why this is your favorite film. Not that you haven't mentioned it much, but I appreciate that. No, I think that this has the potential to resonate with most people. Like he said, when he was younger, it's sort of misses the mark there, and that's not the film's fault. That's the viewer's fault, and for just lack of experience. I think that this film does a really good job of, as everyone said, sort of depict those feelings of looking back at the things that we've done and could we have done that better? But it's almost like this, it's almost like the torturous feeling that you get when you replay like a singular moment that you said something slightly out of character, or maybe you didn't respond to a question exactly how you wanted to. These are singular moments in your life as opposed to massive decisions that are just haunting you forever. And you think to yourself, well, like, how could I have done better? Or why did I do this thing? And why is it such a bad idea? I happen to watch this film at a really good time because, so as we talked about, Greg, I started a new job. I literally started the job yesterday. It was not an easy decision to leave a job that I'd been at for 7 years. I was very comfortable at. I took a leap of faith. So that this idea of fear and being able to take that leap really resonated with me now. It was probably the perfect time because it's one of the more difficult decisions that I've had to make in my life. it was probably the perfect time for me to watch this film. So I appreciated it even more than I probably would have 2 weeks ago. So, and I think that Brooks does an excellent job of piecing this film together in a way that's both nonlinear and still very fluid, because we're constantly, bobbing back in time to analyze aspects of his life that fall into place and sort of fill in holes and gaps that exist within his time in Judgment City. I think the narrative works very, very well. I think the editing is great for that. You had mentioned the set design, and I like the juxtaposition of this seemingly endless city. Anything that you could ever want or imagine is here, and then Daniel and Julia become confined to these rooms that they're almost like prisons when they're forced to analyze their own lives. It's such a massive juxtaposition that I thought was brilliant, and it's almost claustrophobic. And I thought that worked really well in adding depth to the story. And then I thought the lighting choices was a really good decision, or were really a series of good decisions that Brooks made as well, where you can see, particularly with Julia, because she's sort of the light in all of this when Daniel is suffering. The light that is shown on her throughout, it's like a heavenly light, and it works so well for her to play opposite Daniel. So I think the decisions that Brooks makes in developing this film, it works incredibly well. It pieces this film together very nicely. Like I said, it resonated with me. I watched this at maybe the perfect time. Had I seen this in the 90s, I would have been far too young to appreciate it. So yeah, you can breathe easy now, Greg. I really did enjoy this film.
As you did last week. One thing I will say, because we are going to move on, I watch this film at least once a year and sometimes twice a year. And what's great about it, all of you said such wonderful things about it, but what's wonderful about it is every time I watch it, I love it even more because there's so many components of it to do with, and that's one of the things Albert Brooks is brilliant at. Also, what I wanted to comment, the only thing I wanted to comment, Kyle, on the lighting is, did you notice that when the film starts in his life, the lighting and the pacing is very mundane. It's very simple. And then once he gets to Judgment City, that all changes.
Yeah, it's not something that I pointed out and went, oh, I see the transition. But all of a sudden, 30, 40 minutes into this film, I went, oh, the lighting feels different. Like I'm noticing this now. It's not that I was noticing the transition, but I just picked up on it later. So that absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
And the only other thing I want to ask, I just want to go around. We're all muted, as is tradition, but you guys could pop in. Did you see any other Albert Brooks film? He basically directs every film that he stars in. Basically, 95% of them he directs, and he very rarely does any other films. He's very selective. Anybody see any other Albert Brooks written and directed films?
No.
I'm getting no's. Wow.
I mean, Finding Dora, does that count? Finding Nemo?
Well, Finding Nemo and Finding that, not only, Kyle, you're gonna see a couple of other Albert Brooks films. One that he directed. I couldn't make this list every Albert Brooks film, but you will see at least one more. Oh, Holly, have you seen any other ones?
Secret Life of Pets, Private Benjamin. I can vaguely remember that one.
All right. Well, yeah, he's in those. Yeah, he is so, they call him the West Coast, pardon the expression, Woody Allen, and it is very true. And I only don't like that because I'm a staunch East Coaster.
Okay, and one other one, Greg. I did see Terms of Endearment.
Okay, so yeah, these are films that he was in. He always works for James L. Brooks. They are not related. They are good friends. He's even in the new one, Ella McKay. I believe he plays the father. So he does a lot of that. In Drive, he's brilliant. He's the villain. So he's done other things, but all of his films that he directed, for the most part, there's a couple are not so, but it's a lot of it is so existential, different, brilliant, and I happen to think he's better than Woody Allen. But we're going to move on. Two characters, and we're going to start with Daniel Miller, played by Albert Brooks, and we're going to start with you, Kyle. What did you think of our protagonist, Daniel?
So he, in the beginning, is one of only two things that I didn't love about this film, and he felt incomplete to me in the beginning. Um, I didn't want to use the word enigma because there was like that makes it seem like there's some mystery to him. I just I I don't know if we're given anything in the beginning. And while obviously he develops I mean, really well, starting in the second act, I didn't really know who or what he is. Like him dying and then going to Judgment City, that part didn't resonate with me because I didn't get like who or what he was up to that point. It's very fast, you know, and I don't know. There was something about him early on that just didn't work for me. But again, a small thing that did not really affect the overall film for me. As he develops, I connected with him very deeply. I mean, again, this idea that you're being forced to face your fears and being judged on the inability to do that. It was I mean, it's a very interesting, almost like an astounding concept. I mean, I don't know how often we go around judging people going, oh, other than kids going, oh, you suck because you're scared to do this thing. Like, I don't know if we outwardly express that ever as adults. Like, sure, we talk about our fears but we're like, nobody goes, oh, you suck, Kyle, because you're afraid of snakes. Go pick up a snake, or like you're useless. Like, yeah, snakes suck, and like even if you judge me for that, that's okay. I don't know. He does become something of an enigma though as the film develops, and he becomes very deep. And when he meets Julia, obviously he develops even more. And I think that him being forced into what I equated to something of a jail cell in this sort of courtroom scene forces these really dark moments out of him. And not having seen Albert Brooks in anything, I mean, other than being Marlin in Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, which the voice immediately I knew who it was. But so it was nice to see someone that I didn't have really a frame of reference other than an animated character. So there was no face to attach to it, which was really, really nice. See his chops develop before you throughout this film. I really appreciated him and what he puts into Daniel. I mean, he wrote him, he directed the character. He is this character in so many ways. It's just, I think that if I see him in something else now, I'll have trouble seeing someone other than Daniel. It just feels like that's him now. Maybe you're shaking your head, so I could very well be wrong. But just based on this, and it's a testament to how good he is in this.
Go ahead.
Good. No, go ahead, Greg.
No, I was shaking my head because I can't wait for you to see more of Albert Brooks.
Okay.
What about The Simpsons? How big of a Simpsons fan are you?
I've seen maybe 3 episodes of The Simpsons.
God.
Yeah, I didn't. No, I have not done well with The Simpsons either.
All right. So for anybody that's listening, I might as well just finish. As a Simpsons fan, he is Hank Scorpio. He's also, I will comment on something a little bit like that, Kyle. Kyle, anything else on Daniel?
No, just like I was saying, my thoughts that maybe I wouldn't be able to separate him from the character later on is a testament to what he's able to do for that character and how grounded he's able to be while, being an everyman that I think just transcends humanity in a way that you don't often see, especially in films like this that fly under the radar and don't make a big splash. So kudos to him.
Okay. We're going to move on to Johanna. What did you make of Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel was a very interesting character for sure. I find that a lot of movies from this kind of era, I kind of dislike the main men in them. I just find a lot of them quite rude and like abrasive. And then, like the girls just laugh at them no matter what they do and kind of forgive them for all their tomfoolery without any real growth. But Daniel was a bit different here. At first, I was kind of like, oh, his jokes kind of like eye rolls, right? And Julie would always laugh at them. But I did genuinely see like really good parts of him, which was nice, right? Like he was polite to people around him. and he didn't get anything out of that. So like there was really great examples of him just being an innately good person under all of his anxieties and avoidance as well. So it was certainly really interesting to see this guy who, you know, is really being judged on his, yeah, exactly, his fears. I guess the two things I kind of noticed was like the fears and what was the other one? Intelligence, right? That was kind of the other thing to move him forward, was intelligence and becoming brave. But there was also this good part of him where I was like, come on, he is kind of good underneath all that like kind of sarcastic tomfoolery that he likes to do. And yeah, it was really interesting to see my kind of journey with him too, of like, you know what, he did deserve it in the end, right? Like he was able to push himself past those things. Like in this moment of, I don't know, growth, right? Like being able to grow past those, his fear of basically doing anything that could result in failure, right? And yeah, it's almost like the consequence of that was basically living a very mediocre life, right? And again, like Kyle kind of mentioned too, it's like, is that such a bad thing, living a mediocre life? But I guess this movie is saying kind of yes, like you have to grow and become your highest potential, whatever that looks like. And yeah, quite interesting to think of it that way, where it's like, if you don't push yourself, you don't get to move forward. Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and two, that great stuff. And Kyle, I think to your point too, he's supposed to be very mundane in the beginning, very average, very mundane. But I want to move on to Holly McMiller. What did you make of Daniel Miller?
I liked him. I mean, you know, sympathetic, but then I mean, very go with the flow. I mean, there could have been times if it was anybody else. I mean, he kept his cool with everything that was getting tossed at him. Somebody that wasn't like him by this time would probably be pitching a fit or getting into some sort of physical altercation with some of the lawyers, with some of the questioning and the jabbing and the prodding, but he doesn't. He just goes with it, keeps his cool, and had very rational conversations. And, you know, definition, what, you know, it's okay. What is your definition of brave? I mean, okay, brave could be something completely else. By not being brave could mean not doing what everybody's expecting you to do and taking the road less traveled. So it's just, you know, a very compelling character that, I mean, I want to go back and rewatch this because I've watched it twice, and it's just like you pick up on certain more different things each time as you go through. I mean, the rewatchability is there.
Not only is the rewatchability there, but I've been watching the film for 30 years, almost every year for 30 years. There is that you could talk about this film for 6 hours. There is so much more to unpack. It is very the basic components can be discussed the first time, but every time I watch it, that's another reason I can watch it and never get sick of it. Every single time I get something else because it's so much more than what is on the surface here. But let's move on to Keith on your thoughts of Daniel Miller.
I'm going to be like completely left field compared to everybody else. I could have skipped the few minutes before, you know, you're seeing his mundane everyday life and then him getting into his accident. I would have been fine with the movie picking up right there because there is so much backfill during the course of his trial, for lack of a better term, that it filled in enough of the blanks for me. And especially since the first handful of minutes is very, like we've all said, mediocre. You're like, okay, great. The dude got a car, dude wasn't paying attention, you know, A, B, C, and then we're on to the main story. Once he gets into the afterlife or wherever you whatever definition of you want to calling this city, he really starts to develop. And what I thought was a little interesting, and I guess it's more of, again, me being who I am with all my life experiences, the first thing I would have been asking a million questions. He's just very, as Holly and everybody else has said, it was just like, okay, cool. And just very go with the flow, nonchalant. And it does show to his character. My character would have been like, okay, who, what, when, where, why, and just kind of keep going and asking questions because I'm a curious person. So to see him and he's just like, all right, so you're not going to defend, cool, all right, and then move on and then so on. What I thought was a little frustrating with the story was the lack of explanation. Yes, they gave him enough information to be dangerous, but such as when he meets his lawyer for the first time, they're like, oh yeah, you've been reincarnated XYZ number of times. Well, clearly there's a flaw with this whole process, but his character is just like, all right, whatever, and then continues on. And it isn't until we see him meet his love interest that his perspective and his personality changes and he starts to kind of try to grow and improve because as we've all mentioned, it's all about them pointing out his fears and him doing everything in X measures. Like he's doing things up to a point, but he's not pushing the envelope until his divorce. And you can see that almost as like a midlife crisis. When he hits midlife, he starts to make more aggressive choices, not necessarily negative, but just more aggressive. Like when he upgraded his flight, you see him trying to take more, go to more extremes and push what he's comfortable with. I mean, me personally, just relating to his character, I went skydiving when I turned 40 because I'm like, it's on my bucket list. I'm going to do this. And I literally flipped a coin and I was like, all right, I'm going to go do this. So like, I hate flying. I hate flights, but I did kind of his upgrade to first class. I did that when I turned 40. So I can relate to him in certain aspects. So it's interesting to see the parallels with myself and his character. Granted, he took things better than I probably would have. I don't know if I'd be throwing hands like Holly had mentioned, but I definitely would have been a little bit more neurotic.
All of you have such great stuff, and Keith, that was great stuff. To counter you just a little bit, that mundane beginning, we see that he is depressed, and we see that he goes to work and goes home. He said the first line in there is that his work coworkers are like his family. He did make it, which is a little sad, that he spoke to his mother for his birthday. Let's not forget that it was his birthday on the day he died. And he did say he spoke to his mother. It sounds like they just kind of speak all the time. But that's a little sad that his mother outlived him. And it's also a little sad that the coworkers are going to hear about this, but that makes it okay. The other thing was that when the Walsh's father from 90210, great little cameo there. When he asked what he's doing for his birthday, he says he's taking a long drive by himself. That's depression right there. He doesn't care about his birthday. That just, and he's got no friends to celebrate with. So I think we needed to know this stuff. And for me, the film, over the years of watching it, was less about fear. I mean, yes, fear, and I guess this goes hand in hand, but more he played it way too safe. That's what it was about. And that all these choices that he made could have been, he is, and the character that we're going to talk about next, this is an amazing person that sees in him who he truly is, and that is Julia, played by Meryl Streep. And Meryl can do no wrong, really. We're going to start with you, Holly. What did you make of Julia?
I liked her. I mean, kind of shy, but once you get to know her and she opens up, she's a breath of fresh air and brings out the best in him. It makes, almost like a mirror, and it's just makes him sit and think about, oh yeah, maybe I can do this and take that leap. Because sometimes you just have to have that right person to make that connection, to give you that nudge, and that, okay, yeah, I'll actually listen to your advice when maybe you've had 5, 6 other people telling you the exact same thing, and you're just like, nah, no. But then when that one certain person tells you, it's just like the light bulb goes off and like, hey, yeah, maybe I should. So, and just her sense of humor. I mean, she's a great character. A great character.
And totally perfect for him. But let's see what Keith has to say about Julia.
Mr. Negative himself. No, I'm just kidding. No, she is great. as Holly mentioned, she is the character that breaks him out of his shell, his rut. As you mentioned, he's depressed. He's kind of like cut off from all of his friends and family. He just goes through all the motions. She, him meeting her and seeing what she has, not necessarily in a negative way, but just seeing like the hotel that she's staying in and how everybody's treating her and all the interactions. He's striving to become a better person because of her, not on purpose. She's not forcing him. It's just gravity. She's such a good person. She's pulling him to become a better person. And by the end of the movie, as we find out, he does make the leap of faith and go against every fiber in his being when he's scared out of his wits to go see her because he loves her and he's doing this for love. While you can say that's a cliche from a lot of these movies back then, at least his character development, and you saw this path and trajectory ahead of time. You knew something was going to happen. You just didn't know how and why, but you saw this coming. And when you get the payoff, you're very happy and excited. Sort of like when they cut back to the judges in the room and they're like, okay, let him through. They were waiting for that. They knew it was coming. They just she needed to kind of give him the kick in the pants and push him over. And that's what she does. So she makes him a better person.
It was very clear that the test doesn't end until you're fully out of Judgment City. We are going to move on to you, Kyle, on Julia.
I think she's an incredibly interesting character. She's so interesting because she doesn't have much of an arc. She is at the end of the film what she is at the beginning. And yet she plays such an important role. It's rare that you find a character that's not overly dynamic in her character arc, but plays such a pivotal role in the development of the film and of the film's protagonist. She is sort of like Daniel's moral compass. She allows him to be him while leaving room for him to grow. Right? She's never outright judgmental of the things that he does, but she questions him. She is well-meaning always. She's funny in a very subtle and yet equally charismatic way. She's very charming, and all of these things appeal to Daniel very much, and that allows him to see really his own potential. I mean, the courtroom scene, there's obviously a lot that's helping to develop him, but it's a lot of that is, I feel, kind of what we already know about him, whereas Julia is this key to all of his potential. And I mean, she doesn't judge him for wanting to leave the Italian restaurant when the prosecutor shows up. She doesn't really force him off of the tram at the end of the film. She's just yelling to him because she cares very much for him. She's not saying come over here. She's just expressing herself to him, and that allows him to take, like he says, that leap of faith and make the most difficult decision of his life. So I think it's incredible to take such a simple character and have her play such an incredible role. Streep is wonderful. I have been judged for this many, many times for not being the biggest fan of Meryl Streep as an actress. I know that I am in the minority there, but I think that this is an exceptional role for her, particularly in this time in her life. Just her appearance. I say simple, but I mean it in the best way. It's not a knock at her appearance at all. She's charming and innocent and accessible, and as opposed to playing the characters that she is often these boisterous, very powerful women in the more recent films that she's taken on, which works very well for her now. She just fits this role aesthetically so well, and she is one of my favorite characters in the film. We haven't gotten to my actual favorite character yet, but Julia is, I think, my second favorite character in this film.
Oh, you and I might share the same favorite character. Yeah, Julia has to be. What's that? We'll find out. Julia has to be ordinary yet extraordinary, and her beauty has to come completely from her cadence, her way, and yeah, exactly. But I want to move on to Johanna on Julia.
Yeah, it's been great listening to everybody's kind of opinions on her because I love Julia too. She's kind of, as a therapist, I saw her as like unconditional self acceptance, right? I found it kind of difficult when I was just analyzing Daniel, like what exactly it would take to get into, you know, the next, like to move forward. But obviously, Julia is the key here. You know, it's about like grace and courage and, you know, not having this self judgment, right? She wasn't going for perfectionism. She was just living her life without fear almost, right? Like that was the main thing. Um, Intelligence wise, again, like they kept talking about intelligence during this movie, like using a specific part of your brain. And that confused me a lot too, because I was like, they really put a big emphasis on intelligence here. But I feel like it's almost potential instead, right? Like if you guys agree with me or not, yeah, it's not necessarily intelligence what they're talking about with the brain thing, it's really potential. And she kind of embodies that good enough principle, right? She's okay with what she's doing. And she's always putting her best foot forward, right? And that's her fullest potential. You know, happiness isn't about um, you know, flawless results. It's about failing, but learning from it, right? And yeah, that's kind of where her growth is coming from. And one thing that I was, again, like I'm always like analyzing these things, that I thought it was kind of funny that gluttony is not a sin in this universe. Everybody is encouraged to eat as much as they want. So I just thought that was an interesting part of it, right? I guess their reward for getting there. But in my mind, I was like, wouldn't that be considered something not great? But yeah, that's just me. I personally would also eat a bunch of that food because it looked delicious.
What's funny is that, just as an aside, that breakfast that he had in Ridgewood, New Jersey, there is that they changed their name since, but it's still the same concept. The Country Pancake House. That was essentially the portion sizes. Yeah, it is less about. I can really move on, but it was going to your full potential, just like the one of the two characters we're going to talk about, being your highest self. And when you've reached your highest self, then you can be a component of the universe to make everything better. And I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a very religious person, but I'm a spiritual person and kind of believe that the goal of life is getting to your best self. That is always what I feel. Now, as we get to the next two characters, which I'm assuming one of those, and I'm going to guess that we have the same favorite character, but it's also very significant in how Albert Brooks plays Daniel, and what I mean by that, I'm going to say momentarily. So you have Bob Diamond and Lena Foster, played by Rip Torn and Lee Grant. I should mention on Lee Grant, you know, Dick Van Dyke just turned 100, but so did Lee Grant. She just turned 100 on October 31st on Halloween. So bless her. She is also now 100 years old. Bob Diamond and Lena Foster are, to me, really Daniel's conscience, the two sides of him that is saying, hey, everything is okay, what you do, to the tough love thing. But let's see what you guys all think about that. I'm going to start with you, Keith. What was your take on Bob Diamond, Lena Foster? Yes, my favorite character, Kyle, is Bob Diamond. Am I correct that is your favorite character? Or is it Lena? You could jump in before Keith goes here.
I'm going to let you wait, and I'm going to hear what Keith has to say.
Let me wait. One of the interesting things, though, is that Albert Brooks, because every character is obviously Albert Brooks, he's played a lot of Bob Diamond's and Lena Foster's. At the top of my head, I'll Do Anything, he was kind of like a Lena Foster, and characters that he's done in The Simpsons have been like Bob Diamond, and other characters that are escaping me. He's been like Bob Diamond. If you look at the movie Real Life, the character he's playing, a fictionalized version of himself, is very much like Bob Diamond. But we're going to start with you, Keith, on the defender and the prosecutor. What do you make of Bob Diamond and Lena Foster?
So first and foremost, I'm not surprised that Bob's your favorite character. I could have picked that without even trying, but to be fair, I've also known you for like decades. So he It's funny, when I saw him, I immediately thought Men in Black because he's sitting at the desk going like, "Okay, champ, hey, buddy," and he's using a lot of the same phrases and mannerisms. So that was the first character that made me think of him. I liked both of them. I agree with you 100%. One is his very chilled, layback persona, like what his representation of that is. And then you have Lena, which is very much the neurotic, hyper focused on all the negative points, especially when he didn't invest in Casio, when he had the opportunity, all the not necessarily stupid mistakes, but when they did that quick montage of like all the dumb things he's done, like use the chainsaw and he cut the post in half, and you're like, oh, okay, that's, it is what it is. But, a lot of those mistakes and errors are just people learning from their mistakes. You have to screw up to learn. Like, I would never have known how to use a chainsaw without making a couple of mistakes. So her being so hyper focused on like the little things definitely is us as people in general. We hyper focus on the little things, as we've all mentioned about 800 times by now. So I liked both of them. And even when they were in the same room with each other, they were butting heads. But when you see her with any of the other defenders or anybody else, she's like, "Hey, friend, how's it going? Oh, hey, how is it?" All this, like, very upbeat and chill. And her and Rip get in there and they're just butting heads like little kids. So, yeah, I like them. I honestly would be fine seeing a complete other movie with the two of them. Like, I just want, like, Law and Order, Rip and Lee edition. And, like, they're just the public defender and the defense attorney.
One thing before I forget is I felt like, and we mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, I felt like the entire thing was a test. And maybe on some reviews, which I'm going to encourage all of you to do, as I hear it now, you've all enjoyed it, and it's such a rewatchable film that, to the very end, he's being tested, and at the very end, and they're showing the footage from Judgment City, his last moments with Julia, is that, and the fact that they all regroup at the end there is like, this feud might be a tongue-in-cheek feud. This feud might be all for show for Daniel and to see how he's going to react. Well, I did not change this order so that I can rush to find out your favorite character, Kyle. You are next. Bob Diamond, Lena Foster. What do you think?
All right. So Bob Diamond, I think is wonderful. I think that he is the villain in this film, though. Hear me out. He's the enabler. He is enabling all that Daniel has done throughout his life, and he's not a bad guy. So villain is probably not the right word, but antagonist, as we like to say when we're talking Star Trek. He is an antagonist in a lot of ways. Again, he's enabling. He is defending everything that Daniel has done. He's not really allowing Daniel to grow because he's saying, "No, you are fine. Everything you did is acceptable. It's passable. You are fine the way you are." And even at the end, where they decide he's going back to Earth, he's not ready to move on. Bob Diamond is still saying, they're wrong sometimes. This doesn't mean that you're not ready. This just means they made this decision. And I found that very intriguing. I like the character very much, even though I think he is the antagonist of this film. But actually, my favorite character is Lena Foster, because I think she is so wildly opposite, obviously. But I like the tough love approach. I like her inability to be complacent with, all the things that Daniel has been throughout his life. I appreciate that she is willing to take on, the persona of this asshole if it means benefiting Daniel in the long run. She's not worried about how she looks. That's not where she is. And Johanna, to your point earlier, about the intelligence, I agree that it's about potential, but I also think it's about emotional intelligence. And I think that that's sort of where Lena is. She doesn't care who judges her. She's not worried about that. She uses the part of her brain that allows her to see past those things. They're trivial to her. And that allows her to help other people grow. Julia plays a pivotal role in developing Daniel, but had Lena not been so aggressive in effectively prosecuting Daniel, I don't think he fully would have been able to see his potential. I don't think that he could have grown the way that he had. I don't think that he really would have known that in this last ditch effort, he could make a difference. Like, he had an opportunity to change the type of person that he was, because Lena doesn't stick just to what happened on Earth. She goes back just 12 hours to letting him know you're still being judged. This is still part of the test. You can still do better. So Lena is my favorite character. I think she is fascinating. I think that she, while she is there to help to advance and to develop Daniel, she is a character that does stand on her own. And I agree with Keith 100%. I think that just seeing Bob Diamond and Lena together for like 45 minutes would be amazing. I think that they have great chemistry. I think that they do an exceptional job of playing yin and yang to one another. And yeah, I really enjoyed this duo, but also the characters individually.
Well, like defending your life to me could be a 6-hour conversation. And just to counter you just a little bit, when they gather again in the courtroom, Bob Diamond does go, see? And Lena's very touched on it, because I do believe, because Bob Diamond, at what he's the comic, the aspects of him showing something great and then Lena saying, yeah, but look what happened later after you said that the friend lost the paints, you caved. He seems like he is a very terrible defender. Not Dick Stanley terrible, his substitute that one day, but he does seem that way. But he truly does believe in Daniel. And it's funny because I've had guidance counselors like Bob Diamond, and I've had guidance counselors like Lena Foster. I've also had mentors like both of them, maybe even family members like both of them. Maybe even mom and dad have acted for me like Bob and Lena. And I totally think if one wanted to analyze the movie in a way that this is all in Daniel's head, they are both Daniel. They're both on the different shoulders of Daniel, at that case. But to me, gathering again, going, the test isn't over yet, and Lena sobbing, and Bob Diamond saying, brave enough for you, like he knew all along the potential is there. But we are going to move on to Johanna. Johanna, you can psychologist this all you want about these two characters. Please feel free. Bob and Lena. Oh, Kyle, did you have something before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. So you had mentioned your parents may have been the Bob and Lena. And I sort of equated it to, the parents that I deal with at work sometimes, that, oh, my kid can do no wrong. They see the potential in their kid. They're just not necessarily going about it the right way. Admitting to them that they're doing something wrong and they can develop is a better way, in my opinion. I mean, there's obviously different ways to parent and to help someone develop. But I just feel like sort of enabling that is why I leaned more toward that idea of the antagonist with Bob.
Okay. Moving on to you, Johanna. Bob and Lena.
I feel like you guys have really covered a lot of what I wanted to say, which is great. Saves me some breath. But let me tell you, I definitely agree. It's a little bit of like the two people on your shoulders, right? And I also love the analogy of comparing them to parents too, right? Because on one hand, she's like the inner critic, right? Super, super critical and harsh. And then on the other side, you have this parent, right, who is almost like spoiling the child. You're absolutely right. It is very much like parental in that sense, where he's almost excusing the bad behavior and she's being overly critical, really, really harsh on these things, right? And he's in the middle. And that's where I think the learning is coming from too. He can see like the ridiculousness of these two opinions, right? On this side, he's like trying to agree with them, but he knows it's kind of like excusing his bad behavior, right? Which is fun to see. And I found it really interesting too with these characters, like specific scenes that they chose from his life, right? All about the fear and whatnot. And I'd love to hear more about what you guys think about like the specific memories that they chose. Maybe we can discuss that a bit later. But yeah, it was great to see them together again. Really great chemistry between the two of them, for sure.
Yes, we could do that in the further takeaways, which is coming up right after Holly's thoughts on Bob Diamond and Lena Foster.
Oh, I love both of them. I mean, perfect role for Rip Torn. Perfect role. I mean, I could have a whole another movie spinoff with just them going through and defending certain clients and that it was just, oh my goodness. But yeah, angel and devil on the shoulders, trying to make you think things through. And sometimes, I mean, and sometimes they'd switch. It's like, okay, one of them's going to be the good cop one time, and the other one's going to be the bad cop the next time. So they kept you guessing. By the time you think you had them figured out one time, then all of a sudden you get another glimpse and like, oh, okay. But I can't get enough of those two of them. I mean, it great, great casting, great writing for those two characters.
It is my favorite Rip Torn role. And, Lee Grant then in 1991 had at that time already been an old timer. So I haven't seen much with her. I saw her in some horror film, but she's also the mother of Dinah Manoff from Empty Nest and Grease, I believe. Wasn't she in Grease? I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Empty Nest for sure.
Yeah. Oh, Empty Nest. I wasn't always the biggest fan of that show, but I thought the cast was great. Just wasn't my cup of tea humor. But we're going to move on to further takeaways, and I love that Johanna already has a further takeaway, so we could start with you. You can elaborate on what you had said before, and then we can go around and comment on that.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to hear your opinions about the specific memories that they chose, because I was interested. He did kind of joke around, being like, hey, you're always choosing things about money. And I guess in a way that they kind of were, but at the same time, I understand they were focusing on the fear component when they were choosing those specific scenes, right? Like the childhood bullying scene. I felt kind of bad for him, right? Like they chose this one where he felt afraid to confront this bully. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, which is why it's a really powerful one too. You kind of are just like, well, hold on. Like, is this something he should be judged on? Right. And it's encouraging you to question that, to question where you fall on like the ethics of this stuff too. I'm not sure if they meant to do that, but that's where my head was going at. The failed salary negotiation. I love that scene. That was quite funny, that he was super confident in everything and with his wife trying to negotiate the salary. But then as soon as he hit that professional setting, boom, gone, right? And again, the core principle of his self-worth, that was kind of like a monetary version of it, but obviously there's like a greater meaning to it too, that he thinks that his value is low, right? It's just like the little brain, as they call it, right? He's not realizing his true worth. So those two were really good.
And that's where Julia comes in to realize his self-worth, because somebody as amazing as Julia saw the potential that he didn't see. And we're talking about a guy that just always played it safe. Now, again, that is something else in repeat viewings of the film that you can find. Because at first, I can't tell you how long, because I've been watching the movie for 30 years. It did seem like Lena was pushing him on the money, but it had nothing to do with the money. It was literally, and we've all done that. We've all rehearsed something. This is what I'm going to say, and and then it just goes completely out the window, especially job interviews. I mean, I remember I interviewed for a job at Macy's, and I rehearsed the whole thing, but the actual interview turned out to me profusely sweating and not having much to say to the interviewer, and the interviewer clearly going, yeah, you don't have this job. All right, so let's open the floor. Does anybody have other comments on what was shown? I also thought the 9 days thing was hysterical, like everybody saying, oh, 9 days isn't very good. But I love that the guy he met in the sushi bar had 15 days to look at. You can clearly see he was a very different person. And Julia was something like 5. It was something like 4 or 5. It was great. But to comment on that, I loved every scene. We all remember being bullied on the schoolyard and maybe not fighting back. Speaking for myself, I think it could be a combination of both restraint and fear. But then we showed what he went through with watching his father almost beat his mother, which was a very touching part of the film. And really a great portrait of a man who was just always playing it way too safe. But some explanations were there. All right, anybody else have anything on the days that they showed or any other further takeaways on the film before we move on?
I would have liked to have seen more of his previous lives, just because
No.
you get like two of them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was this, and then like that," and like that's it. Even though they've mentioned that he's been reincarnated, what was it, like 20 times or something like that, and each one of them, it's just like
Yes,
some
he was 20,
catastrophic
yeah.
thing, right? But you only see
Yeah.
one, and you see one, he makes reference to like two others, and like that's it. Like I would have liked one more scene of just them in there, like you said, him being depressed, so he goes like on a walk and he ends up there. So he's like, "Oh, let's see what else is going on," and then like you find out it's even like each life is just progressively worse.
I love that Julia was Prince Valiant in a former life, but that wasn't her last life.
No.
Julia got better to her higher self than Prince Valiant. Anybody else? Kyle, do you have anything here?
Yeah, I thought there was a very nice balance in the scenes that they chose for him, because I think that there's moments where he does show restraint, and I think any normal person would look back and go, good for him. Kudos to him for not backing down, but not being physically aggressive with the bully either. Like, while you sometimes want the people you care about to stand up for themselves in a different way than they ultimately choose to, I think that you can look back and say that was not a bad decision. I don't think that him being conservative with his money is necessarily a bad decision. He's obviously lived a pretty successful financial life. I mean, he's buying a pretty nice car, even though it looks like a turd next to the other one. But he's doing well for himself financially. In other avenues of life, he's not doing so hot. But I think that they do a nice job of, while he's defending his life, allowing viewers to go, "Oh, maybe that wasn't so bad," or, "Oh, maybe he should have done this different," giving us some perspective on him rather than just forcing us down one path going, "Oh yes, he needed to make all different decisions," or, "No, everything he did was warranted." So I think that Brooks chooses a nice array of scenes that work to develop the character. And that's really when Daniel started to work for me, is when he first steps into that courtroom, and you get to see aspects of his past.
Holly, anything else before we move on?
For those who hopefully have taken your word to watch first and then listen to the podcast, if you're doing it in the reverse, do yourself a favor and watch it. You're not going to be disappointed. That's my takeaway.
Well,
Assuming you
we
can
are
find
now
it.
going.
Right, yeah. Assuming you can find it. Or find somebody who has it and have a movie night.
I should say I do not own much physical media anymore. I don't want to turn the camera to all the things that I'm selling yet again, but Defending Your Life is a mainstay physical media for me, along with The Shawshank Redemption and just a couple more. I obviously adore this film, but I haven't said that yet. This is the first I'm mentioning of that. Okay, so moving on to ratings, we're going to start with you, Johanna. We go on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you rate Defending Your Life?
Ooh, okay. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. This is my first movie review, so I'm going to give it a high one. It was good. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Excellent stuff. And I thought you were a perfect guest for this film. Moving on to you, Holly. What would you rate Defending Your Life out of 10?
I'd have to say 9 out of 10.
I like it. I like it.
Just the way things progress, it was just like, yeah, it makes sense. It had my attention from beginning to end.
I feel like Kyle last week with one of the good ones, because when you have a film you love, you for some reason have a personal connection to it that you feel like it's somehow your movie too. Keith, out of 10, what would you rate Defending Your Life?
Just so I can script the bell curve, I'm gonna give it a 3. No, I'm kidding. It's gonna. It's hard because I've seen better, I've seen worse, and just because it reminds me so much myself, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It has a lot of good writing. It has a lot of valid points and a lot of good takeaways in terms of how hard we treat ourselves and how hard, say, the rest of the universe treats us. We are much harder on ourselves and really should learn to take more chances because you potentially only have one shot at it, or you're going to do it 486 times.
Moment of truth of every Real Reactions, number 2. Kyle Bain, your rating of Defending Your Life out of 10.
I am right there with everybody else. I'm going to give Defending Your Life an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a very poignant film. I think it's both grounded and existential. I think there's some really strong performances. I think it's great that there was some variety in our favorite characters that speaks to the depth of the film and the characters within it. Yeah, I think this is a very good film. I'm not mad at it at all. It will definitely be a film that I watch again. So 8.5 out of 10.
And I encourage all of you to watch it again because I promise you there is so much more to unpack in this film. Albert Brooks is, to me, a genius, and there's so many more themes, so many things. In fact, this is called a love story. Kyle, last week when we did one of the good ones, that is a love story first and foremost. And then there were the reviewers of saying they focus too much on the love story. In terms of Defending Your Life, I only feel like the love story is a component of his growth. I don't feel that the main story is the love story. It's a subplot. It's an important one, but it's a subplot. So I'm going to give it a 10. Obviously, I give it a 10. I feel like it's a perfect movie. It's my favorite. I haven't mentioned that yet, but it's a 10 for me. And I encourage, if you want to hear more of my general impressions, the characters, it's Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast. Just check it out. And I've said my general impressions, my thoughts on characters, how much it means to me. I've said much more. Now, before we move on to plugs, I don't want to end this on a very sad note, but we all know what happened with Rob Reiner. And of course, Real Reactions are devastated. But the reason I mention that is because wherever I would have put this would be sad. So we'll do it before plugs and we won't end on this note. But if you are interested in Albert Brooks, his life, all the other components of showbiz, including being a major part of creating Saturday Night Live, although he's uncredited, it was his idea to make it a different host every week after Lorne Michaels created the show. He wanted Albert Brooks to host it. And it was Albert Brooks that said, you know what? What about a different guest host every week? That might be better. And they'd be promoting something or something. So that was him. And he was the first on SNL to do the digital shorts. From 75 to 76, the first season, he did the digital shorts. But there's so much more than that because he's an actor's actor, comedian's comedian, and filmmaker's filmmaker. You've got people from Judd Apatow to Chris Rock, to so many more people talking about the influence that Albert Brooks had on them. And it is called Defending My Life. Albert Brooks, Defending My Life. It is streaming on HBO Max, but might be too early to watch it because it was produced, directed, and hosted by Rob Reiner. And that's very sad. There's a connection there. Of course, we're all devastated about this, but the connection there was Albert Brooks was a family friend. Paul Reiner actually said to Albert Brooks, I met the funniest, most brilliant guy, and his name is Albert Brooks, and I think you should meet him. And so there's a whole history on Albert Brooks, a whole documentary that Rob Reiner did. And so in a bittersweet announcement, if people listen to this or is interested in all of Albert Brooks's work, it's all covered in Albert Brooks Defending My Life, streaming on HBO Max, if it's something you can handle right now. But we're not going to end on that note. We're going to go to plugs, starting with you, Holly McMiller. When you're not here talking about films, and you'll be back again, and being the official test audience member for every episode of Real Reactions, which I wasn't even sure if Kyle was aware of that every week you could pop in, Kyle, to know every week Holly gets, every month, she gets the episode, she watches the movie, she watched one of the good ones.
Yeah, that was news to me last week.
Yeah, she is, and then she kind of gives it a green light. She's never given it a red light, but she said, great episode, great movie. And so it's great to have her on. And we know we're having her back on, I know in March, but it was great to have her back. Holly,
Yes.
when you're not here and when you're not being a wonderful patron, where can folks find you?
You can find me as 1/5 of the Five-ish Fangirls. You can find our information on the fiveishfangirls.com. You can follow me personally on X/Twitter and Instagram at HollyMac_79. And you can follow me at Blue Sky at HollyMac79.
Excellent stuff. Keith Bliss, when you are not here, being our first guest of the season, our last guest of the season, and many, many more appearances to come, where can folks find you?
Apparently, I have no life because DJ Nick and I were just talking about this moments ago. You can find me here on, like you said, your first episode of the season, obviously in the last episode. I've been on Star Trek The Undiscovered podcast a handful of times. I've also been on Gold Standard. I've been on Happiness and Darkness. That is my primary podcast with our producer, DJ Nick, where we talk about cartoons, movies, superheroes, lions, tigers, and bears. You can reach out to me on our Facebook page, Happiness and Darkness. You can also find us on all major social media platforms.
Excellent stuff. Johanna Dinsdale, where do you want to be found? I'm not sure about your social media presence. I know about your YouTube presence, but tell everybody what you do and where you can be found.
Absolutely. If you want to find me, check out multitherapy.co. That is my official website if you want to book a therapy session with me, Jorb. You can also check out my YouTube channel. That's where I post the most free hypnosis stuff. I also do tips and tricks about therapy. So check that out. Just look up Johanna Dinsdale and you will find me. That's all the plugs I got.
Excellent stuff. I was debating whether or not to say that I'm on that channel somewhere. So here's what I'll say. I'm on the channel somewhere.
Yeah, surprise Easter egg.
It's a surprise Easter egg. Was that is that the same channel, or that was a Johanna Dinsdale channel, or is that the same channel as Multitherapy?
Yeah, Johanna Dinsdale. Greg's on there somewhere. You can find him.
So this is what I'll do. Because I'm a very private person, even though it doesn't seem to. If you go there and want to find me, you can, but I will. You'll be surprised as to what it is on there, and that's how we met. It was a lot of fun.
Mysterious.
Okay, yes, it was. Kyle, maybe 2026. When we come back, we should hire Dan Martin. I don't know. But we do not have Dan Martin money. And unfortunately for Johanna, possibly Keith and Holly, doesn't know what we're talking about. But because we don't have Dan Martin money, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Do we have any idea if Dan Martin has listened to any of these and knows that we don't have Dan Martin money?
Don't tell Dan Martin.
Dan Martin's scheduled to be here at some point, but I can guarantee you, it's not personal, but I can guarantee you Dan Martin has not listened to a single episode of Real Reactions. Go ahead.
Someone needs to, whisper in his ear that we don't have Dan Martin money, and he can do it out of the goodness of his heart, just once to surprise everyone. But no, you can.
That would be a good idea.
No, you can find me at on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Baines Film Reviews. You can find me at Twitter or X at Baines Film Review, no S there. You can find me at my website, bainesfilmreviews.com. You can find me on an abundance of podcasts, Star Trek The Undiscovered podcast, which I've been on way more times than I ever expected I would be.
You were regular. You were essentially regular.
Yeah. Bullshit hour with John Seymour. The hour of comics is upon us. Gold Standard. I've made my rounds and I've enjoyed every minute of everything.
Excellent stuff. So for me, Greg Vorob, I will spell my name Gregvorob. The main place I would love for you to find me is YouTube at Greg Vorob. Everybody's busy. They don't go to things, but please, if you have the time, check out the stuff. There's films I made there. There's clips from things that I did there, but mainly basically every film that Dan Conrad and I made with All Things Random Productions is 99.99% of them are there. Check them out, please. That's at Greg Vorob on YouTube. On Instagram and Blue Sky, find me at Greg Vorob. I'm on X again, but listen, you don't have to follow me there, but if you want to, please do. It was to give numbers to the podcast and to my friends. And then I found out from my Twitter expert friend, yeah, that actually doesn't do anything for everyone if you do not use your Twitter and don't follow a lot of people. So that's what that is. But hey, I'm there at Vorab Greg, VORB Greg. So I'm there. But that's just as an aside, especially the jokes that I've been on and off Twitter X for about, there's Keith, who knows that, since the existence of Twitter X. On Facebook, find me, my professional page at Greg Vorab. You can friend me too. I'm not feeling very social lately, but I'll accept you, I think. Find this podcast, Real Reactions. Remember, that's REEL. On Facebook, just search Real Reactions with Greg and Kyle. We're different everywhere else. On X, we're at Real Reaction Pod. On Blue Sky, we're at Real Reactions Pod. You know what, Kyle? You did the Instagram thing to us, so you tell everybody where to find us on Instagram.
Are we real_reactions_pod?
We're at real_reactions_pod.
I made it so difficult that I can't even remember it sometimes, so I apologize.
Of course, don't forget to check out our extended family of podcasts, Random Cinema with Greg and Jace. That is my, it's basically monthly right now, but it is sort of an as we can do it, we do it. That's with me and VHS Jace, where we take guests and we give them a choice of 4 years. Of those 4 years, they are going to pick a movie from one of the 4 years that they select. Kyle has been our first guest, and I can't wait to have on DJ Nick, Holly, Keith. Keith, I'm going to get back to you. Put a pin in Keith and Johanna, if you could come on that. That would be great. Keith, you are, we have one recorded that's coming out. You're next, but you have yet to select the film. And because you don't know, from what I understand, you don't know whether you want to torture us or legitimately give us a good film, which is okay. That's the nature of the podcast. But yes, you have yet to choose, but you are next, one after next.
I mean, you could just put me on the spot or anything. But yeah, see, I'm thinking, like, do I torture you guys so you don't invite me back? Or do I be the adult and get a good movie so you do invite me back? See, I'm trying to, I may have to go back and rewatch this movie to decide.
Okay, well, if it's any consolation, because it's such a long list, repeat guests don't happen immediately, so don't worry about that. Of course, Star Trek: The Undiscovered podcast for the first 3 seasons. I am showrunner and head moderator. Kyle is the resident film critic. Keith and Holly have been on that many, many times. There are 3 full seasons where I am the head showrunner and main moderator. There's enough bonus shows on that to constitute its own season, but I cannot wait for season 4 when the reins actually go to Jeff Howell and Ken Radner. And Jeff Howell, for me, I completely believe, for the Doctor Who fans here, that I am the Eccleston to his David Tennant. I can't wait to what Jeff is bringing to the table. And that is, I left that show for a plethora of reasons, but one of them is it needed a new direction, and there's nobody better than Jeff Howell and Ken Radner, but Jeff Howell to take my place to do that. I can't wait, and I know that you guys are all going to love it. Of course, our extended family, Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast, the aforementioned Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, the aforementioned, the Five-ish Fangirls. See, I say all this because I don't want to feel naked, but all of you guys are in the outro. Twin Cities Trekkies, which Keith just did one. I believe that one is released.
Yes, just came out today, actually.
Okay, great. And Holly, is yours recorded?
Mine's recorded, and it will be coming out closer towards Christmas or Christmas Eve. I'm not 100% sure, but it'll be one of those 2 days.
And mine is recorded too. Twin Cities Trekkies is, of course, another Star Trek podcast. And this is the year that he was doing the 30 years of Voyager celebration.
Correct.
So we all go on there and talk about Star Trek Voyager. So check out Twin Cities Trekkies with myself and Keith and Holly coming up. Captain's Quadrant live every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on their YouTube channel at Captain's Quadrant. All of these are aforementioned. Bullshit Hour with John Seymour and its subsidiary. This podcast is Lamb Chops. I'm going to say a podcast that Keith is an alumnus of. The Hour of Comics is upon us with John Seymour, Jason Gurin, and Ken Radner. And the next episode of that I am on because they're doing a Batman comic, and they are contractually obligated to have me on whenever they do a Batman comic. But Keith, if people check out The Hour of Comics is upon us, they could check out you in the first 15 episodes as well. You are an alumni.
I are.
And this is the part where I flip back the paper to next month on Real Reactions as we begin our second season. Coming up next, it is the 2017 Dave McCrary directed and Kyle Mooney conceived film, Brigsby Bear. Kyle, three-part question for you. Have you seen or heard of this film?
No and no.
Are you familiar? Is anybody on this panel familiar with who Dave McCrary is? That's the third part of the question.
That actually sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you a thing about him.
He is Mr. Emma Stone. He is married to Emma Stone, actually. So, folks, we will see you in the new year, which is mid to late January. It'll be the second to last January or the last January of the month, to be exact. Until then, happy and merry everything to you all, whatever you celebrate. Thank you so much for this incredible first season. Happy New Year. And once again, thanks to our guests, Johanna Dinsdale, Holly McMiller, Keith Bliss, and as always, Kyle. And we will see you in January 2026 for Brigsby Bear. Until then, for the last year, for the last time in 2025 and this season, I say to you, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.